Hi everybody, it's RPG Grandma. I tried doing this earlier at work and you guys saw my struggles with we're going to save the planet by shutting off the lights. Well, my struggles continued in other ways. It's just one of those days. It wasn't a bad day, just one of them days. Um, well, what I've been doing is trying to go over rules, that would be game mechanics mostly, with role playing in mind, and those are two different things. And every time I watch, how to make your D&D game better, or how to role play better, or how to do whatever in the game better, whatever game you're playing. There's not a whole lot in Frontier Space, oddly, so no. That's what I do, obscure stuff. Let's play the games nobody else is. I'm going to have to break out some games you'll never see in release times. But anyway. So I looked at Ambush and Surprise today in Frontier Space. Now there's Ambush and Surprise in D&D. I'm sure there's rules in Mongooses, TUI Traveler. I know there's rules in GURPS. I mean, everybody's got something for this because, your player characters might get surprised. Or the monsters might get surprised, right, guys? So let's have a look at the mechanics, because that's the first step in asking yourself questions, which comes down to, how am I going to role play this? If you think there's a chance that the characters may be caught unaware, or the NPCs, this is, you do a surprise check. So we're using some pretty old language here. This is just a perception-based action check. They also call them action checks. Anytime you use against your abilities. But which skill applies to the role depends on the situation. A scout might use perception plus explorer to detect an ambush from stealthy predators. A bodyguard might use perception plus marksman to detect a sniper taking aim at a person he's guarding. And remember, we saw in the if you went and watched the what do the rules say about role playing, the little video I did out of here, and I had some critiquing. They had perception plus marksmanship there as well to find concealed weapons. Battlefield commander might use perception plus commander to detect a surprise flanking maneuver. In some cases, you might just call for a raw perception check, no skills attached, if you think no skills would help. Each character failing their action check is surprised for the first combat round. See conditions. In this chapter, a critical failure might result in being paralyzed for one round, which is far more common than most people realize when bullets start flying. Critical success might be used to cancel another teammate's failure, pointing out the source of the ambush in time to prevent injury. Now, we're not going to talk about initiative. This is surprise. All right? So, and it said, see conditions, which is like page 25. And I read through conditions. It's quite interesting. They got a nice little chart, and you look up surprised. Assume a roll of 1 for initiative, and a -10 to any action checks. All right. So now some games have really complicated interlocking mechanics with surprise. I haven't seen that in here yet, but it's not like I've sat here and spent a month reading this. I'm kind of just looking at how does this work, how's that work, and how am I going to role play it. So, role playing this. What I typically see on all surprise checks is the DM or the game master or the referee or whatever you want to call the person in the hot seat with the rule books. Say something like, roll roll a, perception check, roll a detection check, they have some kind of term like that, and roll to see if you're surprised. If everyone goes, oh no, something's happening, right? Right? Everybody rolls their dice, and then we find out if the player characters are surprised or not. Now, the other way it happens is, the player characters tell you they're going to try to ambush somebody else, and so they're all set up to ambush, and you roll to see if the NPCs are going to attack or ambush, whatever they're going to do. It wasn't nice. Throw water balloons on, whatever. And see if they get the element of surprise and can do what they want to do, and the other folks are, flat-footed. Now, this gets us into other mechanics, though. But first, I want you to think about, how do we hide the mechanic? It's my rant. We can do it. We are smart enough, So here's what it comes down to. You're going to have to narrate as the GM. That's what you're going to do. So let's take the first example, our scout. All right, he's on point. He's scouting ahead the rest of the group. He's moving through the jungle. It's dark. He can't see anything. He can hear animals moving around. He can see animals sometimes just barely, because they disappear so quickly into the foliage, into the branches, hopping around. But he can hear them. He can hear some, animals making calls. It's super dark because, even if it's daylight, canopy can really cut out a lot of sunset light. So it's dimly lit. Maybe the sun's setting. It's getting darker and darker. Moving through the jungle, trying to move, hacking stuff with his machete. And he's making noise as well. He's stopping every now and then and going slow, right? Because of the train. And all of a sudden he realizes it's gotten quiet. He's noticed something. That's one way to do it. Just saying to the players, all of a sudden it's gotten deadly silent. When you were talking about noises before, in the forest or the jungle or someplace like that, where there are, lots of animals making noises, and you keep telling them as they're going through the jungle that they hear animals in the background of some sort, but they never really get a good look at them, and then everything goes silent. They're going to start looking around better, right? So that's when you would do a perception-based check of some kind. But if they fail, you look around, you don't see anything, everything just seems calm. And they can do whatever they want. They can I move my gun to a ready position, right? And get it ready to fire. Okay, go ahead. Let them do that. Make a note. But they still have no way of knowing if they've sensed something or not. And if something happens mechanically now, they're attacked. If they had failed their roll, they're still caught off guard. On the other hand, if they succeeded in their roll, they're not caught off guard. But again, you've got to figure out how you're going to trigger that roll to be a natural organic thing. Like I said, either do some kind of visual so they know that they're supposed to roll, or you're going to have to be the one doing the rolls. The game has it, each individual is doing the rolls. So that's what I'm talking about here, is when you read through these rules, you need to start thinking about, how am I going to role play that? Do I really want to stop the narration, and everything goes silent? Okay, roll two Ds. I mean, because you can do that. But you do want to limit the amount of that mechanical talk. Absolutely. So that's what I'm getting at, is try to get this down to the bare minimum, where you're all communicating, but you're cutting out as much of that mechanical language as you can. You can say things like, the hairs on your back or your neck start tingling. Think about when you've sensed something unnerving in your life that's put you on edge, that there could be a problem. But the thing is, even when you know there could be a problem, this is why the freeze thing is important here. You can still get surprised. You can still have that jerk reaction where, instead of running or fighting like you're supposed to, you freeze. Or you do that little jump thing and freeze. You try to scream and you can't. I don't know. I mean, that's happened to me. But then I was wandering around in the woods in the middle of the night, so okay. The freeze thing is real, and it's primal. That's why little animals do it, and that's why grown adults will do it. And it's momentary, but it does make it so you may not be able to do anything for a round easily. People recover quickly, but yeah. So think back to moments when you were scared and your reaction wasn't to run and it wasn't to fight, but it was to jump in place or something. One of those kind of reactions, or just freeze while your brain's processing what's going on, and then you can take action. You've been surprised, even if you knew there was something. It's so weird. So, or maybe there was nothing, but just a noise was enough because you were already all amped up. So that is the kind of stuff you have to draw on when you are role-playing these things out and explaining to the player characters what's going on with the roles. So I would use cues that something's happening, and they're unnerved because they're having these gut reactions that something isn't right. And maybe something isn't right is the cue to tell the players, after the hair in the back of your neck stands up, something's not right. And that's the cue that they go, I gotta roll my perception plus the skill. I failed. Oh no. Yeah, right? Then that's what I'm talking about, is otherwise you're stuck saying the game mechanic. So I'm trying to get you guys to think how to communicate what you want the players to do without saying roll a bunch of dice. Get them, look at the damage and how it works in your game, and come up with an easy way to do damage. So the players know exactly, I'm shooting bullets. Bullets do this amount of damage. I'm punching people with my bare hands. My bare hands do this much damage. I only need one of these dice, and it's halved. Or I only need two. I need two of these. But this other, like if I had the laser weapon, maybe it would be 4. But as long as they know what it is and it's consistent, they will pick it up quickly and be on top of it. Or maybe you do combat in such a way that the damage is worked into the dice roll for what we call the to hit mechanic when they're attacking. So they successfully struck the other person or thing or whatever it is, and the die roll tells you how well they struck, and so that determines the damage. You can make changes in a role-playing games to give you the most freedom to speed up or slow down a game, to make it as mechanical as you want or as free as mechanics as you can get it. But if you go totally free, you're telling campsite stories, you don't need any game mechanics then at all. You just need everybody to take turns to tell their ghost story. All right? That's not what we're going for. We're not going for storyteller hour. We're going for role-playing in an interactive environment in which you, the referee, plays everything but the player characters. Okay, and then the player characters play their characters. The players play their player characters in that environment, with the challenges, the obstacles, the conflicts, the environmental conditions that you, the referee, are responsible for narrating or role-playing out to them. But I think one of the big things I see over the years of playing mostly games like D&D, but, Star Frontiers, Gamma World, I've done Savage Worlds, I've done GURPS, I had Traveler, just only got to play it once, and then everybody quit on me because it was too hard. They hated it. Let's see. I've had others. There's always been this tendency to go war game with the mechanics and use all the worm game genre, and they've made up new genre, new lingo, new technical terminology. Oh my gosh, every time I come out and play with the rest of you all, I'm just like, what are you all talking about? And, I get caught up with the new terminology every time, and I'm just like, why is this a thing for people? Why did they even make these terms up? Can't we just role play a game, kill some kobolds or something? If you want a war game, awesome, let's just go do that. But why are we doing this super analytical stuff, and nobody is giving people any advice on how to role play a combat out that doesn't involve you roll D20, you hit. Roll your damage dice. You hit, you do X damage. And it's very dry that way. Just boom, boom, back and forth. Orcs attack you. They hit. You take 2 damage, right? Something like that. It needn't be that way, is what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. Is it going to be hard to change the way you're thinking about this stuff? Absolutely. But I think you'll get something out of it if you start looking at the rules, especially the rules you use all the time, and go, how can I say that different? That's the biggest change people need to make. How do I narrate that differently? So it doesn't become a monotone, and it's often monotone, especially when the DM's face is, behind the screen. Roll for perception, roll dexterity, roll agility check, roll against your skill in bioengineering. I don't know. You guys understand what I'm saying? And I am Miss Mechanical Crunch. Like, there are things out there that I get excited over that other people's eyes glaze over when you start talking game mechanics. But even I know when there's a problem, and that's the biggest problem I'm seeing, is nobody's putting any creativity into actually role playing, being surprised. Now, flight, fight, freeze, as reactions, by the way, I personally would consider those reactions. And they're what I see people do. They when I went to college, I always talked about the fight, flight response. And I hear it all the time, even now. And I sit there and go, there's a third one. It's freeze, okay? And I know that surprise is being used pretty much as the freeze result in role-playing games. But I think you should give it considerable thought as well. Does the person just freeze? Do they faint? Could happen, right? I've seen it. Do they stumble backwards? In other words, they do move. They move away from the threat, but they don't move well. You know, and they're uncoordinated. So there's no agility going on, no dexterity going on, and that stays with them for at least a round before they can recover. Do they completely just lose it psychologically? I've seen that happen to people. You know, do they go into some kind of blind rage thing where they just start striking out at everything and even their friends? I've seen that happen when people are stressed. I've seen the weirdest things come out of human beings because Granny's been in some weird situations. And I'm telling you, when people are in this high stress situation, that they are being ambushed, that they have been surprised and they're scared, you get a range of reactions. And I want you to think about that. Don't worry about the book, what the books say at this point. Think about, how can I use actual human reactions in my game? How can I bring that into the role playing for these kind of situations? Yeah, you let the players recover, and so they can, get it together. But those initial reaction moments, they should be very dramatic, especially if they're fails. Okay, and going straight to fight is not always a success. So I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention, before I move on, that the rules in this particular game seem pretty free form, right? You take a skill, you add it to an ability, and that, the skill modifies the ability, and then you roll. But it's a different ability. It can be a different skill, same ability, different skill, different ability, same skill, depending on what's going on. And if you want to try this game, don't be afraid of that, or any game that works like that. They're giving you maximum freedom, whether you realize it or not, and giving your player characters a lot of freedom, and that's a good thing. Don't be afraid of rules that allow you to be creative and free, and instead hold on to rules that constrain you and limit you. And don't come up with rules that become too limiting. And I'm adding some rules in, but the reason I'm adding them in is I'm actually creating a better buffer for the players. I know, dangerous me, but I want to make a buffer to create better role playing, and I want to try it out on them. I do it in with my D20 when I do like a 5e style game. I say style because I changed my 5e so much. I did terrible things to it. I'm like, no, I don't like this rule at all. What was that in 2E, 1E, or is it in a different game that I think that the rule I want here is in a different game, and I did terrible things to it. so understand that you can start doing that anytime a rule isn't working, but don't be afraid of rules that give you a little more freedom, more flow, more creativity, more discretion on your end as the GM. Players, don't fear it either. It means your game master is going to be able to do more cool things and be less constrained. Knowing the rules as written is important. Knowing how they can be adapted for the game you guys want to play is equally important. All right? And not being afraid to do that. And I don't care if you just bought the rules last week. Yes, you want to try something because you always thought it would be cool, make it happen. The worst that'll happen is it won't work and you won't do it ever again. It's just a game. People's real lives aren't on the line here. Yeah, so be creative. Find channels that are creative, and you will have a lot more fun from those creators. And there are people on the net who actually create games. Even if they use different system than you would be inclined to use or like, they are a font of knowledge. Listen to them. Anyway, have a great day. Like, subscribe, comment, and talk to y'all later. Bye.